Sam Altman wants 250 gigawatts of power, enough to run 62 million homes. CoreWeave just signed a $14 billion deal with Meta. Microsoft is desperately building its own chips to escape NVIDIA's stronghold. And Jeff Bezos just called the whole thing an industrial bubble. And JP Morgan is rewiring its entire operation around AI that doesn't exist yet. After analyzing over 50 infrastructure deals over the past week, CEO confessions, and economic forecasts, I found the pattern nobody seems to want to talk about, and we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. They're all investing in each other's AI fantasies with borrowed money, government subsidies, and your retirement savings in mind, creating the most elaborate circle financing scheme in corporate history. Welcome back, boys and girls. Today we're documenting how Silicon Valley built a house of cards on a foundation that requires more electricity than Portugal. And if you wouldn't mind to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you have not yet, I would greatly appreciate it. I, Uncle Rod, would appreciate it. And speaking of Uncle Rod, take a look at that cool looking little wall hanging I've got back there. Maybe you can't see all of it. I don't know. I think I'm going to put it on that wall right there, somewhere up in there. Not quite sure yet. Came faster than I thought it would. Bought it from a company on Amazon. I mean, I did this design, but guy's little hat up here says Uncle Rod on his hat. It's kind of hard to do. I guess weather people do it all the time. Anyway, and if you wouldn't mind to comment in the commented below, I almost called it comment addendum again. Comments below the video, I'd appreciate that as well. Gives me something to work on and answer you back, and I enjoy talking to you all. I'd probably have it on the wall back there, but my afternoon nap went longer than I thought it would, but yeah, who's kidding who? At my age, you fall asleep and you don't even know you're asleep. Let's follow the money, shall we? Because it goes in a perfect freaking circle as usual. CoreWeave signs $14 billion with Meta. Meta uses NVIDIA chips housed in CoreWeave's data centers. CoreWeave gets valued at $60 billion. OpenAI signs with CoreWeave for $6.5 billion. Microsoft funds OpenAI. Microsoft also dumps billions into CoreWeave. OpenAI signs a $100 billion deal with NVIDIA. Did you catch that? NVIDIA's chips go in CoreWeave centers, which Meta rents, which OpenAI uses, which Microsoft funds, which pays NVIDIA, which supplies CoreWeave. Every company is at the same time a customer, creditor, investor, and supplier to every other company. I love it. Anybody want to do that with me? We could pass money around, and I don't have any, but maybe you could start. Bloomberg's analysts nailed it. These kinds of deals spark bubble concerns because of how insular the industry appears and the massive dollar amounts involved. Say what? When everyone's buying from everyone else with borrowed money, you don't have an industry, you have a pyramid scheme with better PR. I think I've used that line before, I'm sorry. It reminds me of being in college when I was paying my credit card bills with, other credit cards. That was really brilliant until it wasn't. Remember Enron? They did the same thing, created fake transactions between subsidiaries to inflate revenue, sold power to themselves, booked profits from deals that were really just money moving in circles. The tech cartel learned from Enron's mistakes, though. You don't hide it. You call it ecosystem synergy. That's what it is, Mr. Investor. It's economic synergy. And investors will line up to throw money at you like Madonna at the Elm Creek Senior Living Facility, dodging her fellow senior admirers. While CoreWeave and Meta are playing financial and musical chairs, Sam Altman is on what it can only be described as a global begging tour. Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, UAE, Altman's hitting up TSMC, Foxconn, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Hitachi. Not for a tech conference. He's begging for manufacturing capacity and investment capital. Because ChatGPT is burning $16 billion in server rental this year, with projections hitting $400 billion by 2029. Think about that math. OpenAI is spending $16 billion annually on compute. They're valued at $500 billion, but the revenue, nowhere close to justifying those server costs. So Altman's flying around the world with his hand out, basically, like, Don Deckinger with his hand out, calling the Royals runner safe at first base in the 1985 World Series against the Cardinals, when we know that the runner, Mr. Don Deckinger, was out by 10 feet. Get some frickin' glasses, sir. I shouldn't make fun of him. Poor guy, he got death threats over that. That's stupid. And that was back in 1985. Think about what would happen today. Anyway, good old Sam Altman is promising these companies they'll be part of the factory that produces a gigawatt of new AI infrastructure every week. Connecting the dots, as we like to do around here. I'm counting the dogs. Connecting the dots. When you see Altman meeting with Abu Dhabi's MGX and Mubadala Funds with G42 as the operation partner, you're watching desperation. OpenAI told investors they'll spend $400 billion on compute by 2029. That's not a business plan. That's a ransom note to anyone stupid enough to invest. I may have to look into that next week. Meanwhile, Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott just stated, "We don't place faith in any specific AI accelerator." We're so terrified of NVIDIA's monopoly pricing that we're burning billions building our own chips. Scott literally said they want to build complete end-to-end systems, including network and cooling infrastructure, because they need total freedom to optimize performance. These guys must go to the Merriam-Webster School of Speech. I don't know. When the world's second most valuable company is admitting they need to vertically integrate everything, chips, servers, cooling power, that's not necessarily strategy. That's more like panic. Well, run for your life. Let's talk about Jeff Bezos for a second, because we haven't been talking about poor old Jeff for a while, and he texted me the other day and said that he was greatly disappointed and sad. His Italian Tech Week appearance was a masterclass in rich guy hedging, which we've already talked about today. They're very, very good at. Oh, good, a blank page. Another blank page. Stuff on the back because I recycle my paper. Because I'm cheap. Sweet like money. Never say never again. Sean Connery, James Bond, when he was wearing a hairpiece. Quote, "This is a kind of industrial bubble. The good ideas and the bad ideas get funded." This is Bezos talking, remember. "And investors have a hard time distinguishing between them." Then literally in the next breath, Mr. Bezos said, "But that doesn't mean anything happening isn't real. AI is real and is going to change every industry." Bezos is calling it a bubble while Amazon keeps pouring billions into the same infrastructure. That's covering your ass with both hands, your buddy's hands, the girl next door's hands, the praying hands. When this implodes, Bezos gets to say, "I warned you." When it somehow doesn't, he gets to say, "I believed in it from the very beginning." Now, let's talk about why Altman needs 250 gigawatts of power. 250 gigawatts! Because this is where the grift becomes physically impossible. And for those of you who haven't watched The Sting, a grift is a scam or swindle. It usually involves deceiving someone for financial gain, often through manipulation, trickery, or false promises. And if you haven't watched The Sting, what the heck is wrong with you? The Hoover Dam, one of America's greatest engineering achievements, produces 2 gigawatts. Altman wants 125 Hoover Dams worth of continuous power. Context, all of California uses about 50 gigawatts. The entire UK uses 60 gigawatts. Altman wants 4 times the UK's total power consumption. Jolly good. Where's this power coming from? They have frickin' no idea. Google's building a $4 billion data center in West Memphis, Arkansas. Microsoft announced they're developing the world's powerful AI data center in a repurposed Foxconn facility in Wisconsin. OpenAI wants to deploy at least 10 gigawatts of NVIDIA computing systems. But here's the problem. Well, there's your problem. That's Mythbusters circa about 2005 when the cement truck that all the cement hardened in the little dumper thing when they blew that up. I love that episode. And the shock waves goes up and they're standing on that ridge and it kind of knocks them back. And then Adam goes down there and goes, well, there's your problem. There's nothing left of the damn thing. That was a good show. Too bad about Grant. So the U.S. power grid can't handle this at all. We're talking about plugging in more laptops. We're not talking about plugging in more laptops. We're not talking about some refrigerators. We're talking about industrial scale energy consumption that rivals entire nations. How are we going to do that? We haven't planned for this. China's planned for this. We talked about that last episode, but we haven't. Because we don't do anything until something happens or it's needed or whatever. And then we go, oh, well, I should have thought about that. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who's also the interim NASA administrator because this timeline is broken timeline, just announced plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. Wattage on the moon. Some may say. Not for moon bases, for winning the second space race against China. Because apparently when you run out of Earth's power capacity, the logical next step is nuclear reactors in space. We saw that movie, didn't we? 1983. Nuclear reactors in space. I'd go there as long as it had a Taco Bell. Or Mars, as long as it has a Taco Bell, I'm there. Microsoft's consumer banking chief already told investors that operations staff will fall at least 10% in the next 5 years thanks to AI deployment. JP Morgan's chief analytics officer is literally rewiring the entire bank, 317,000 employees to run on AI agents. Derek Waldron, JP Morgan's chief analytics officer, gave CNBC a demo where he created an investment banking pitch deck in 30 seconds. You can imagine in the past how that would have been done. We would have had teams of investment banking analysts working long hours at night, he said. Would have, past tense, because those analysts are already being phased out. But here's the kicker. JP Morgan is spending $18 billion annually on tech infrastructure. For what? What are they spending that kind of money on? So they can generate PowerPoint decks faster? No. So they can eliminate headcount while maintaining output? It's about productivity gains. It's about labor cost destruction. You want to know why everyone's freaking out about circular financing? I bet you woke up this morning wondering that. Gee, I wonder what's happening in circular financing. Because we've seen this movie before. It was called, drumroll please, 2008. Banks sold mortgages to other banks who packaged them into CDOs, sold to other banks who insured them with other banks who bet against them with other banks. Everyone was everyone else's customers and creditors. The whole system ran on one assumption. House prices never go down. Then one guy at a hedge fund asked, wait, who actually owns these houses and can they actually pay for them? And the entire global financial system imploded. Yeah, you see, I'm a real estate appraiser by trade. And I'm old, so I've been in business a long time. And I remember 2008 very well. And we talked about this, I think, last episode or a couple weeks ago. Hell, I don't know. But I would literally sometimes pick up my phone and see if there was a dial tone. Hello? Anybody need any business? I remember, I would go out and appraise a house for, say, X amount. And 2 months later, I'd go out to the same house and find that it had increased in value by an incredible amount. Why? Because real estate is a safe investment. It never pops. And the comps all showed that it had, in fact, increased in value. I didn't want it to, but I'm bound by certain ethics where if the comps show that it has increased in value, I can't say that it hasn't. I had next door homes next door to the subject property that had escalated in value that also pushed up the home that I appraised 2 months ago's value. And it just kept going on and on and on in a circle. And I remember I came home one time and I told my wife, I said, we got to pay our house off before this whole thing blows up. And I think we missed it by about a month, but we were okay. I mean, I didn't miss a payment, but the bubble burst, and about a month later we paid off our house. So it was okay for us, but it wasn't okay for a lot of other people. Now swap mortgages for AI infrastructure and banks for tech companies. CoreWeave's $60 billion valuation depends on Meta's $14 billion commitment. Meta's commitment depends on OpenAI's models being worth it. OpenAI's survival depends on Microsoft's continued funding. Microsoft's funding depends on enterprise adoption. At some point, there will be a drawdown. When Goldman Sachs, the company that helped engineer 2008, tells you to be skeptical of market euphoria, you should be absolutely effing terrified. These are the same people who created synthetic CDOs to bet against their own clients. If they think it's a bubble, pack your bags, Waldo. If AI is such a guaranteed winner, why is Microsoft abandoning NVIDIA to build its own chips? Sam Altman's touring the world begging for money and manufacturing capacity. Why is he doing that? Jeff Bezos calling it a bubble while Amazon keeps spending. Every tech CEO building redundant infrastructure instead of trusting the ecosystem. Because they know. They all know. They always know. The music is about to stop and nobody wants to be the last one standing when the power bill comes due. Let's talk about what happens when this infrastructure comes online, because the CEOs have stopped pretending this ends well for workers. Exhibit A, Perplexity CEO Aravinds Servinas. His name's Bob Smith. Smith, quote, instead of hiring one more person on your team, you could just use Comet to supplement all the work that you're doing. Not work with a person, not augment your team, replace, supplement one fewer person. He estimated a 20% productivity gain could add $5 trillion to GDP. But what he doesn't say is that the $5 trillion doesn't come from creating new value. It comes from eliminating $5 trillion worth of salaries. I'm going to butcher this, but that was in the movie Wall Street. Remember that? Gordon Gekko said, I create nothing. He created nothing. He just speculated. J.P. Morgan's Waldron, explaining how employees will shift from being makers to checkers, meaning you won't create the work anymore. You'll just verify that AI did it correctly. And when AI gets better at checking its own work, well, Waldron admits it's unclear as to exactly what those changes will look like. We're eliminating your job. We just don't want to say it out loud yet. But we know. What are we, stupid? Good grief. We're not stupid. I don't care if we are stupid. If I'm stupid, I'm not stupid. I'm not this stupid. Stupid in a lot of things, but I'm not this stupid. Stupid is as stupid does. Reid Hoffman interview, where he accidentally admits the whole game. The job without AI agents will be a person plus AI agents that will be doing the jobs. Huh? Then he immediately tries to reassure everyone. Well, not necessarily. A lot of jobs are competitive. Huh? I still don't know what the hell he said. Competitive as in you'll compete with AI for your own job? Huh? Okay. And when AI can work 24/7 without sleep, benefits, or bathroom breaks, how do you compete with that? Okay. There's this adorable thing happening where economists keep insisting comparative advantage means humans will always have a job. The argument goes, if AI is better at everything, we'll still do things that we are relatively better at. Except it only works when there's no resource constraints. Humans need 100 square feet of living space and 2,000 calories per day. AI needs a few square inches and 400 watts. When labor has a resource cost and AI's resource cost is lower, the comparative advantage disappears. You get unplugged like an old GPU when the new model arrives. Here's a fun sidebar about how deep this goes. The stable coin market is fracturing because of AI. Tether and Circle control 85% of the $245 billion stablecoin market. Tether and Circle control 85% of the $245 billion stablecoin market. The stablecoin market, boys and girls, is the new one world currency. Anybody read their Bibles? You know I'm not a Bible thumper, but I've read it several times. And while I was raised a Baptist, I'm not standing on a street corner saying the end is nigh, but maybe I should be. 85%. But now every exchange, every wallet, every fintech is creating their own stablecoin using services like Bridge, which is owned by Stripe. Why? Because if you're an exchange with 500 million in USDT deposits, Tether is earning $25 million per year on your float, and you're getting nothing. So everyone's making their own stablecoin. Phantom Cash, Hyperliquid's USDH, Paxos USDG consortium with Robinhood, Kraken, and Galaxy. I know a lot of you have heard of Robinhood, at least. What does this have to do with AI? Because the infrastructure to create and manage these stablecoins is being automated. Bridge lets tiny seed stage startups launch their own stablecoin with 0 humans. You don't need treasury managers, compliance officers, or financial engineers. You just need code. The finance industry is eating itself from the inside out, replacing human judgment with algorithmic systems that move money faster than Al Capone. So let's bring this home, shall we? The tech cartel has built a $1 trillion circular financing scheme that requires $400 billion in annual compute spending by 2029, 250 gigawatts of power, more than the UK uses, manufacturing capacity that does not exist yet, investment capital from sovereign wealth funds, government subsidies and nuclear reactors, and perfect execution on technology that hasn't been proven yet. CoreWeave's $60 billion valuation, Meta's $14 billion commit, OpenAI's $500 billion valuation, Microsoft's vertical integration panic, Altman's global begging tour, which might top Taylor Swift's last tour, JP Morgan rewiring 317,000 employees, Goldman Sachs warning about drawdowns, Jeff Bezos calling it a bubble while denying it's a bubble. One thing breaks and it all breaks. If GPT-5 disappoints, if the power grid can't deliver, if one major investor pulls out, if governments restrict energy allocation, if the labor savings don't materialize, if consumer adoption stalls, if somebody wakes up and goes, what the is going on? The dominoes fall. CoreWeave's valuation evaporates. Meta's commitment becomes a liability. OpenAI burns through its funding. Microsoft eats billions of wasted chip R&D. The whole circular financing scheme goes down the frickin' toilet. And the workers already being eliminated on the assumption that AI will work. As we know, JP Morgan cutting 10% of operations staff, investment banks discussing reducing junior bankers from a 6-to-1 ratio to a 4-to-1 ratio, layoffs hitting 744,308 and a half in the first half of 2025 alone, the highest since COVID. I'm the half. That was me. I've half-assed work since I was 16. They're firing humans to make room for AI that might not even work. Bill Gates, said another financial crisis is a certainty. It's a certainty. Bill himself, Mr. Gates, said, William for short. It's a certainty. Well, here's a guess, Bill William for short. When a $1 trillion circular financing scheme built on 250 gigawatts of power that doesn't exist meets the reality that ChatGPT 5 might just be an expensive chatbot. The tech cartel loaded the guns, pointed them at each other, and called it disruption. Do I look like I got dumbass written all over my face? I'll see you in the next episode.